when you guys turned on this video, I guarantee you guys didn't think you were going to church, but hey, we here, me and Mike, we have a sermon on Trey Sermon because all we about to do is preach. Because that's all we do. We preachers preaching the word about the NFL draft and everything NFL. How
I
you
don't
doing,
know
Mike?
about I don't know about all that, but I do know we have Trey Sermon here today for a quick little scouting report. Nothing too crazy on him. Let's just hop right in. So, what you're gonna see first things first. Obviously, if you look at his kind of stats over these past couple years, first 3 years he was at Oklahoma, and then transferred into Ohio State just this past year for 2020. But what I would say concerns me the most is the fact that he was never really in a lead role, like ever. In 2019 he was fourth on the team in carries. That's likely why he left. But even this year he was splitting a lot of time with Master Teague, running back that we might see come out in next year's draft. And even prior to that, there's just a lot of other guys who've kind of detracted carries from him, and that sort of scares me a little bit. Mike, do you have the same concerns with what you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. And the point he had a pretty good sophomore season. Junior took a step back, big step back, um, and then transferred. There's still that's obviously there's concerns, and um, whether it was because he wasn't the primary back, Oklahoma um, just had better options available. Like that's obviously a concern, and yeah, he was never really a premier back, and I think that's obviously a concern. And I don't think he should probably be a premier back. I think where he's going to get drafted, I think what we're looking at might be a really not a second or third running back on that rotation list.
No, I agree. I will say though that when he did get touches, kind of like you said in that sophomore season, he was pretty effective. He only had 4 games of his last 22 in college where he got more than 15 carries, but two of those, for example, were at the end of this past season. He got 29 against Northwestern, had 331 yards. I believe broke Eddie George's single game rushing record there, and then followed that up with 31 carries for 193 against Clemson that next week until he got hurt in the game against Alabama in the national championship. So it seems like he's a guy who, when he does get opportunities, you can maybe see some better results. But it scares me that the opportunities haven't been there, in all honesty, because it's not necessarily just a timeshare, as we've seen. It's been multiple guys detracting from him. But with that being said, let's hop right into my grade. So what you're going to see right off the bat is I'm not a huge fan of his vision. And you could maybe attribute that a little bit to the fact that, it's a 2020 pandemic year, shortened off season, transferring in. Did he really know the playbook at Ohio State? You could maybe attribute some of it to that, but even at his Oklahoma film, I didn't quite see what I wanted to see there. Speed acceleration, I'll be honest, I thought he looked more explosive at Oklahoma. And then again, maybe it was because the game was just slowed down for him there, that he was making decisions quicker and actually hitting these holes harder. Whereas at Ohio State, he was a little bit more kind of timid, but either way, just a little bit questionable. And then agility, just not really his strong suit. Power, I thought he was solid, balanced. He did an all right job of taking on contact. And then pass pro, he was solid. Again, for a guy with his frame, 6'1", 215, you'd kind of hope that he's good in pass pro, because he's not really going out for routes. As you can see, pass catching, I gave him a 3.5. That might have been a little bit generous, in all honesty. But the size is there. Some decent athleticism in terms of just, there were a couple plays where he was hurdling guys. I think as a general athlete, he's solid, and a lot of what he did in 2019. As you can see, I kind of went back there and watched 2 games from then, 1 game from 2018, just to see like what was going on with this guy. And he seems like a good athlete. Just in this year, he looked like he was playing a little bit slow outside of that Northwestern and Clemson game. So Mike, do you kind of agree with this grade, or how would you break things down yourself?
No, I totally agree. I don't think there's anything he truly really, at least on film, that it kind of stuck out. There's nothing he excels at. He's good at most things. I'd probably give him a little bit higher grade on balance. I thought that's something. And if you look at his actual stats, his lowest yards per attempt was actually 5.8, and that was on his most productive season. So um, it's really not the speed acceleration. I didn't really see the vision that he was making cuts to find different gaps. Um, so I think it was power and balance. I think we're really why you saw pretty nice yards per attempt for him. So, um, but other than that, I have you probably exactly the same. I might take a little bit maybe from the speed and acceleration, even though occasionally you'd see him burst through a hole and you'd see that acceleration, but it wasn't on a consistent basis. Especially after some of the running backs we've been taking a look at, like Hill, Gaineswell,
Michael
Williams, some
Carter.
people that
Yeah.
really just show um, that you really can see speed and acceleration being one of their primary, skill. It didn't stick out for our boy Sermon.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's why I think, as you can see, I do have him graded towards the back end of the fourth round, kind of right around. I guess I'll pull it up, kind of right around where I had Chuba Hubbard. I think they're similar in many regards in terms of the ceiling might not be there, but they're just kind of all right at everything. I do say that Sermon's a little bit better in the power department, and I agree with you. The balance is pretty solid as well. That's why I do have him just 1 point ahead of Chuba. But yeah, Mike, how do you think he compares to the backs we've seen? Would you say that he is? Would you, especially between him and Chuba, which one would you say you prefer more? I guess.
Trey Sermon, and I don't know if you guys haven't watched the Chuba video. Watch the Chuba video. I wasn't a huge fan what I saw from my man. Um, so I take Trey Sermon. I think the floor is higher for Trey, which is funny because like off the 1 year at Oklahoma State that Chuba had 2,000 yards. You think he'd have a higher floor, but that's just based off what I saw on film, play style. I wouldn't say that's the case. So I'd probably take Trey, but I think when you're great, anytime your grades at the lower end of the fourth, or like in that area, I think the gap is just it's getting so tight. Like it gets really tight in that area. You could really just because we have a fourth round grade, like he can easily. That's when teams start stretching on players they might have liked, had a good interview with, maybe have a certain skill set they're looking for and can fit a certain role. So um, you can see this man go in the sixth easy, and it wouldn't be really a shocker. It really is kind of when you get to those later rounds. It's anyone's ball game, but I'd probably take Trey over Chuba if I were drafted on that late on the back end of the fourth or later than that.
No, I agree with that, and that's a good point with the fourth round. Like everybody really in that fourth, fifth, and sixth range is typically very tight. Obviously, at the beginning of the fourth round, there's kind of those leftover guys from round three, but after that, it does seem like guys could go wherever. And hey, maybe your head coach, your future head coach in the NFL had a tie with your college coach, and he knows why you didn't produce this or that. He can answer some of those questions that maybe other teams weren't able to. And I do think that a guy like Trey Sermon, maybe he'd benefit from that. Maybe he'd benefit going to a scheme that kind of wants his skill set because of maybe a familiarity or something. Who know, maybe a Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, for example. Who even knows? But I just think that there's some intrigue with Sermon. If your team needs maybe a rotational guy, but not too much is there for me. I'll just say that I think that, like I said, mid round guy, and I wouldn't I wouldn't be shocked if he outproduces that a little bit if he goes to a better scenario. I mean, if you put this guy in Kansas City, I think you could put pretty much anybody in Kansas City and they'd do well. But I don't think that if you put him on a mid-level team that you'll see him really pop off the tape next year, if that makes sense.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. So um, if you want to talk about something that does pop off the tape, it's these videos. So if you guys like the videos, you should, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I know me and Mike both love comments. If you think Trey Sermon actually is the next coming of Jesus, because all we do is preaching, um, then let us know and tell us we're totally wrong and tell us why. We'll definitely, conversate. We'll leave some comments, just some of our general thoughts, and if you haven't heard them here. So yeah, we enjoyed doing it. I hope you guys enjoy it. So,
And
anything
if you
else, Mike?
yeah, if you do subscribe, if you made it this far in the video, I'll give you a teaser. The next review is gonna be on the guy who replaced Trey Sermon at Oklahoma. So a little bit of a teaser there. We'll have Ramondre Stevenson coming up hopefully tomorrow. So make sure you hit that sub button if you want that video in your sub boxes. But no, with that being said, I think we're mic'd up and now we're micing out. Peace, guys.
Deuces.